Drax.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Can I refer you to the registered member's interests? Madam Deputy Speaker, I welcome the Queen's speech, which is a timely intervention if ever there was one. Apathy last Thursday is a warning that many of our voters see as rudderless and lacking ambition and vision. It's a shame, after you led the world in fighting the pandemic and lead the support for a battered Ukraine. I commend the Prime Minister for both. It was an extraordinary coincidence that on the day all restrictions were lifted on the 24th of February, Russia invaded Ukraine. Since then, the world has faced soaring costs, shrinking revenues, and shaky alliances, with fuel and food shortages threatening global stability. What concerns me is that while we defend freedom and aim for recovery, our nation struggles with ever-weakening institutions, toxic cultural wars, and citizens struggling with the consequences of a cost-of-living crisis. The future seems less certain now. Our economy, blighted by COVID and lockdowns, is not igniting as fast as we would like. Unbelievably, we, the Conservative Party, are presiding over the steepest taxes since the 1940s and the highest sustained spending levels since the 1970s. This is not the Conservative way, nor is it the way to cope with a stumbling economy. High taxes stifle enterprise, aspiration, and, as we've heard from my right honourable friend, productivity, and risk low growth, stagnation and unemployment. This week, the Bank of England warned of impending recession and 10% interest rates, driven by higher energy prices. These are difficult times, but every cloud has a silver lining, and as Conservatives, this is the time to be radical, to return to our vote-winning philosophy of less state, low taxes and sound public finances. Yeah. If ever there was a time to loosen the screws, this is it, and the Prime Minister knows it. He said, and I quote, "This moment makes clear our best remedy lies in urgently delivering on our mission to turbocharge the economy, create jobs and spread opportunity across the country." Hear, hear, I say. So let's get on with it, Prime Minister. The Chancellor, of course, must fulfil his role. The promised tax cuts in 2 years will be too little, too late. We'll have lost the electorate who, burdened by high taxes and debt, will turn to a ruinous socialist government, one possibly in coalition with the SNP. The ultimate nightmare scenario. I accept that legislation on its own cannot solve the cost of living crisis, which to a large extent has been caused by events outside the government's control. But we do have the power to cancel the increase in national insurance, remove VAT from domestic fuel and reduce fuel duty even further. The power to control our own economy is one of the major reasons I back Brexit. And I'm generally designed by measures in the Queen's speech to at last fully exploit our newfound freedom. I have to say, about time too, as hardcore Remainers are still out there, only too eager to highlight any difficulty we face. And while on the subject of the EU, despite the lack of a specific bill, I'm glad to hear the government will prioritise support for the Good Friday Agreement and its institutions. And unless the EU compromises further, we must rewrite the Northern Irish Protocol to ensure that Northern Ireland is genuinely and unquestionably back in the United Kingdom. The current system is not working and endangers all that so many have worked hard to achieve, namely peace and prosperity. I'm also relieved, I think that's the right word, to at last see a bill that aims to conclude the appalling witch hunt of our Northern Ireland veterans. I don't want to commit myself any further at this stage, as the devil will be in the detail, Madam Deputy Speaker. While on our armed forces, I'd be failing in my duty not to once again warn the government against impending cuts to the army. Regrettably, ministers appear persuaded that Ukraine's success against overwhelming odds proves what a small, flexible and manoeuvrable army can achieve on the battlefield. Fortunately, the Russians have shown how inept they are at combined operations, and this is a false comparison. I'm told that mass is no longer necessary. Well, an army of 82,000 is not massive, Madam Deputy Speaker. And for sustained operations against a peer adversary, and God forbid what happens or what we face in the future, numbers will count in any future conflict. Can I return to the direction of the government's travel? The government's advisor said, and I quote, "It's time to scrape the barnacles off the boat." And here I have some sympathy with the opposition benches on the lack of an employment bill, but I would just say, as an employer myself, we are already riven with legislation from top to bottom. And their danger of imposing more is to disincentivise employment rather than encourage it, while quite accepting that employees should have rights. Of course they should. And on one issue, flexible working, yes, if it works for the employer, the employee should be allowed to work flexibly. But it shouldn't be a right. That's all we hear so often from the other side. Right. What about responsibility? It is the employer who takes the risk to employ someone, to give them a life chance, a career and a salary, not the employee. So a balance should be adopted, not necessarily so much weight on one side. Will you forgive me? I won't, because I'm going to plough on. There are a lot of people want to speak, and I haven't got much longer left, if she will forgive me. On to the housing situation, and my right honourable friend from North Somerset spoke such sense. The bill to ensure locals have more of a say is to be welcomed. I really am backing that. Far more imagination, less density, more green space, and supporting infrastructure is needed in the planning system. It is failing every single time. And affordable homes must be affordable. I have seen examples where developers have really gone to take the care to build affordable, friendly, safe, warm homes that look nice. All too often, sadly, I see larger developers building homes that seem to fall apart within a year. This has to be changed. The NHS, there was no mention of the NHS, but as I've said repeatedly, I do believe the NHS, while it serves us well, and I wish it to continue, it does need to be overhauled. And as Alistair Heath pointed out in the recent Telegraph article he wrote, which I thought was very good, he said all reform is stymied by the lie that any improvement is privatisation by stealth. It is simply not. And I'm delighted the protesters are finally going to be challenged from gluing themselves to each other or roads or anything else they can find to stop people from going about their daily lives, jobs and medical appointments or whatever they want to do. I'm delighted at last that bill is coming forward. There is much to welcome, and let me just conclude. So far as the number of bills is concerned, this point's been picked up. I don't necessarily believe that a huge number of bills is always the right thing to have. And my father was a great believer in less is more. It's the significance of the bill, what it delivers, rather than the number of them. Having said that, I do support many of the bills that have come forward in the Queen's speech. But as I end by warning the government that we must return to our traditional conservative philosophy if we are going to turn the country round, regenerate the economy, and importantly, win the next election. This means giving people more of their own money, especially during hard times. And what happened to the Singapore-style low-tax economy that we boasted about, we hoped for, we fought for, and we're looking to deliver, which will create the wealth, prosperity and jobs that we all need. It's there for the taking now, and I urge the government to grab it.
Barry Sherman.